The truth exists to be uncovered. And let's just say that the latest wuwa event was an incredible journey about the truth. No matter how far others may go to conceal it, there will always be someone out there searching for it. Ragunna has been a constant whirlwind of what is right, what is wrong, and is this true or is this false? The exploration of morality and the lengths that someone will go to maintain their truth has been something that has been well executed throughout this arc. Although this event, of course, is not a main story event, it definitely felt like one. And it should not be dismissed as unimportant to the story, especially since, at least to me, I view this event as a great closing act to Ragunna. Now, I know that skip button can be ever so tempting, and sometimes we may miss things the first time, but that's what I'm here for, because today we are here to discuss all the ins and outs of the 2.3 event story quest, Your Summer Will Never Wither. Please remember that this video is very spoiler heavy and includes lore crafting, lore analysis, and speculations on future patches. So if you haven't played it yet and don't want to be spoiled, pause this video and I will be here when you get back. With that being said, let's get into the video. The quest begins with a quick trip to everyone's favorite place to grab a bite to eat, the famous Trattoria Margherita, where we are greeted with a familiar face, Carlotta, who swiftly invites Rover to dine with her. The area is brimming with locals as well as the ever so suspicious Cristoforo, who can be seen creepily observing Rover and Carlotta. It is also important to notice that he is holding a sheet of music. Keep this in mind for later. Nearby, two locals are discussing the latest gossip and what the Order has been up to lately. One of them is a street musician and the other a street poet. The street musician mentions that the Order had recently cleared out an abandoned library, and in doing so, they had discovered a manuscript of a poem accompanied by sheet music. What makes this manuscript so important is that it was signed as Golden Anthem, a name that is forbidden in Ragunna, and once the street musician shouts the name from the top of his lungs, those around him glance in shock and discomfort. The Golden Anthem is a name with a past so dark and horrifying that it should never be uttered. The mysterious manuscript is said to be their last piece of work that they had written on the Pilgrim Sale. But what exactly is the Golden Anthem, and why is it such a taboo subject? Well, the Golden Anthem are famous criminals of Ragunna. They were once a renowned poet society, and their 3 members were choir leaders for the Order of the Deep until they won. And as you can probably guess, they were banished and sent onto the Pilgrim Sale for their crimes against the divinity. The legend states that the Golden Anthem's Pilgrim Sale mysteriously caught fire. The ship was destroyed and their lives were lost with their last work along with it. But now we're faced with a very important question. If their last work was destroyed, how did it manage to end up in the abandoned library? Now this is where things get really creepy. Since the manuscript is now technically public knowledge, surely singing it would be a good idea, right? Said no one ever. The street poet asks the street musician what the piece sounds like, and with an ominous smile from Cristoforo, the local plushie band begins to play the piece, and seem to become possessed as they attempt to attack Rover. Cristoforo, in one of his many random speeches, comments that the plushies had been possessed by demons, and that it was exactly what an article published in the Ragunna Literary Journal had suggested. The article states, resentful of the verdict, they committed to paper a curse upon rinascita and Ragunna. Those favored by the divinity were the most willing to raise their blades of rebellion, for they alone knew how to make the divinity bleed, and doctrines crumble. Though they died in exile to a great fire, their resentment festered in their music and poetry, transforming into horrors known as demons. Like the fire that dragged them to hell, these demons will spread throughout the land and burn all of Ragunna. I mean, the people of Ragunna do love their theatrics, so an article of vengeance born from resentment is something they simply could never resist. Think of it as like watching the news. The more positive stories tend to not pique as much interest as the negative ones. Don't get me wrong, it is albeit an odd phenomenon that occurs in people, but also look at the state of Ragunna. It would be really tough to stay positive in such a place when at any moment you or your loved one could be shipped off onto a pilgrim sale. It's terrifying. And when I read the manuscript, not to be an Order defender, but I could see why they would want the Golden Anthem and their work out of the picture. Because oh boy is this manuscript insane. It basically calls the Imperator a divinity with rotten scales who has tainted Ragunna to its core. And with what we know after 2.2, they weren't wrong. Anyways, Carlotta suggests that they should seek the help of someone who is an expert at deciphering music, our goofy little bard, Chacona. During the initial conversation, we learn that Carlotta and Chacona are actually childhood friends. Carlotta reveals when she was a child, whenever she would pass by Chacona's home, she would always hear her playing music. Tocatta also recalls that Chikona's family were the conductors of the Order's choir at the time. But what happened to them? And why is Chikona now a wandering bard of rinascita? It appears to be a touchy subject for Chikona, since her response is basically, keep the past in the past. She then asks what piece of music is powerful enough to summon monsters, the Golden Anthem, and to even mention their name could lead to banishment at sea or worse. Honestly, I don't know what could be worse than being sent to your death on a ship set up to fail, but I also don't want to think about it. The composers seem to have cursed the Golden Anthem poem, dooming all of rinascita to a tragic end. But Chikona doesn't buy it. How could a poem curse rinascita? The group now decide to go on a journey to discover the mystery behind the Golden Anthem's last work. Before they set off, Chikona decides to test whether or not the poem actually works. And to their surprise, the poem works and the group are forced to fight off the wild echoes that it had attracted. Through her forte, Chikona is able to basically replay a collection of conversations and voices of the people of Ragunna. But if the poet's resentful souls were able to summon demons through their last poem, wouldn't the voices activated through Chikona's forte sound like the poets themselves? Maybe the voices of the people of Ragunna themselves is what truly caused the demons to manifest. I mean, they do say that words hold power. The legend states that demons are born of death and curses, but the supposed demons that the group had encountered seem to be more like manifestations of people's words and imagination. So the only thing to do is to go deeper into the frequencies of the demons and journey towards the truth. Chikona can often be seen carrying a manuscript along with her everywhere that she goes. And this book houses Chikona's realm of melodies, a sonorosphere which can be used to allow others to view the world as she does. Music can transcend space and time to bring memories and stories to life. Through the manuscript, the group will be able to dig deeper into what the demons truly are. When we are met with something where we don't know the full story, we often come up with our own conclusions to fill in the gaps. The problem with that is that this often prevents the truth from coming to light, as people become satisfied with the conclusions they made themselves. With motive and a complete story, a lie can easily become the truth. But how are words able to manifest demons? Well, there could be a resonator puppeteering the situation, and they may also be the author behind the article. Imagination knows no bounds, and if left unchecked, things can only get worse. Of course, for resonators, dealing with demons and tacit discords is nothing but a walk in the park. But to a regular person, what do they have to defend themselves? How could they not be completely terrified by the existence of demons? There has to be someone behind all of this, and they must find out who and what their goal is. Tocatta decides that the group should split up and sends Chikona and Ruva to find the melody connected to the Golden Anthem. The Ruva and Chikona arrive at the Requiem Paradise, a place in Ragunna where musicians lay their old instruments to rest. For the people of Ragunna, the sea is everything. They live by the sea, and it is said that their souls drift out to sea when they pass. Because an instrument is an extension of the musician, it makes sense why they would bury their instruments by the sea. The two come across a lute that appears to have belonged to a member of the Golden Anthem. Through the remnants of the melodies left within the lute, they are able to explore the story behind it. As they enter the realm of melodies, the image they find themselves in appears to be an interrogation room, and its melody carries the weight of the Golden Anthem's very interrogation. An acolyte interrogator states, "The Codex teaches us those whose sins are cleansed by the sea shall remain blessed by the sea." He accuses the Poets Society of slandering the Sentinel and making claims that the Sentinel's true form is a steed of the skies. A lithograph had been found with supposed lies carved deeply into it. In the face of the tempest, a giant celestial steed carved a path for the Ark, in which of course the acolyte interrogator denounces, and tempts the leader Farrell with protection for the Golden Anthem. All that they would have to do is admit that what they claimed was not the truth, and to reveal where they had hidden any evidence. Farrell explains that it is hard for him to cooperate whilst being held in such a cold room where they can barely speak. The interrogator again tempts Farrell with his freedom. All he has to do is denounce the Sentinel, in which Farrell shows no signs of doing. Chikona states that there are no official or private records of this interrogation even happening. We also get to see an echo of Selena, the second member of the trio, who comments that the group were not skilled adventurers or mighty resonators, just people in search of the truth. Farrell's goal was to find others who understood his doubts in the divinity, not cause chaos and damage to the people of Ragunna. The third member, Rimbo, mentions his concerns for Farrell's sanity, stating that he should have hidden the truth in the secret study, but instead he began spreading the dangerous knowledge through his poems and handed them to the children of Ragunna. Rimbo believes that they should have buried the truth and not outwardly spread it to every corner of Ragunna. As we know, the Golden Anthem's path did not end well, but it was also something that they anticipated. because ultimately, anyone who dares to go against the order dares to pay the price. Although it is not clear who exactly is behind the summoning of the daemons, it is clear that the Golden Anthem could never be the ones behind this. They knew what they were doing. They knew that they could just turn around and forget everything they had been searching for, and they knew that they would eventually meet their maker. The Golden Anthem had gotten too close to the truth about the Sentinel. And so to keep the true form of the Sentinel concealed, the Order ruined the Golden Anthem's reputation, silencing them and banishing them to sea. Maybe this is the goal of the mastermind behind this, to conceal the past and silence those who know the truth. By creating panic in Ragunna, prejudice against the Golden Anthem would only grow, and to make it grow even further, the mastermind took the opportunity to create monsters born from the people of Ragunna's words. The melody begins to fade and becomes too unstable for Chacona and Rover to stay any longer. But as Rover tries to leave, they don't exactly, well, leave. Instead, they are transported to what appears to be a study, and they are now separated from Chacona. And now Rover must navigate this unfamiliar place alone. In the distance, a young girl with a resemblance to Chacona can be seen reading through some books. She can be heard questioning what truly happened to the Golden Anthem while reading through their work. The very last work that was deemed blasphemy of the highest degree by the Order. The same last work that is supposed to summon demons. On the day that the Golden Anthem was exiled onto the Pilgrim Sail, that same young girl watched as they boarded the ship that would lead the group to their inevitable deaths. One of the members can be heard shouting, "Because they cannot banish the truth, the Order of the Deep instead banished us to the sea. Our thirst for truth was why we were cast out. No matter what, remember this, the truth will always exist, and the truth is gold that is unafraid of the fiercest of flames." But who is this young girl? I mean, she does resemble Chacona, but is that really her? Rover asks the girl where they are and who she is, to which the young girl disjointedly responds, "She's always been distant and aloof, but her true melody is both heavy and fragile. Chacona Tocatta, as long as you still draw breath, lift your eyes and look. With this poem, your life is eternal." And with that, Rover exits the realm of melodies, where they are met with a very concerned Chacona who was trying the entire time to get them out of that. Rover explains that they had wandered into a strange-looking study, where they had met a strange young girl who seemed to be quite educated on the Golden Anthem's work. The young girl had also mentioned a name, Chacona Tocatta, but similar to earlier, Chacona suggests that they leave the past in the past. Although there was a slight mishap, the melody from the lute did allow them to make some progress. So the next stop is the Cathedral of Mercury, where they will hopefully be able to learn more about the Order's involvement with the Golden Anthem. When the two get there, they notice a choir of children who appear to have lost one of their members called Risa. The children are worried that something may have happened to her, and that they need her since she is the lead chorister. Risa had been acting strange since they started rehearsing a special hymn, one that she said was made by criminals. Sound familiar? The special hymn could only be that of the Golden Anthem. Chacona and Rover eventually manage to find Risa sat on the ground singing. Chacona asks Risa what is wrong and why she is so hesitant of singing the hymn the choir had been given. Risa explains that the hymn they are practicing was composed by bad people, and that their teacher even refers to them as heretic poets. Risa doesn't understand why the Order wants them to sing something that was written by criminals, which is a completely reasonable thing to be curious about, because it doesn't really make sense. To find out more, Chacona manages to convince Risa to return to the choir and uses her forte to explore the hymn's melody. The hymn was sung at the cathedral, and the choir was once led by the Golden Anthem. The scene almost looks like a ceremony of some sort. The hymn on the surface sounds like a normal song to glorify the Order's reign, but it's much deeper than that. The Order's highest priority is to, well, maintain order. By doing this, they grant themselves power and stability in Ragunna, so much that most are too afraid to question them, and if they do, they face the consequences. The Golden Anthem's hymn had earned the Order's favor, and it is pretty much because it literally sings their praise, thus painting them in the best light possible. And of course, the Order being the Order can't resist something like that. This is so messed up to me, especially because we know that the Order banished the Golden Anthem. But you best believe they're still gonna use that work only when it benefits them. Once they go deeper into the melody, they discover an angry listener accusing the Order of hypocrisy. The angry listener appears to be a person who helped Ragunna fight off the Tacit Discords in Whisperwind Haven. But what the hymn fails to mention is the many lives of the common folk that were lost during battle. The hymn only glorifies the Order and the Knights, who practically did nothing to help, only take the credit. This incident seems to be something that changed the Golden Anthem forever. Rova is able to go even deeper into the melody and finds themselves back at the study where they found that young girl earlier. The young girl is having a conversation with a maid while she is reading from a pile of books. The maid warns her that the study is a secret and that she must never tell anyone of its existence. The young girl voices her confusion. All of the poems and songs in the study are so interesting to her. Why not share them with the world? Why does her father prevent her from reading them? The maid responds that it is just something the young girl will understand once she is older. Rova exits the realm of melodies and decides to leave Raisa and the other children to rehearse. After they leave, Chacona questions Rova on what they had seen in the melody, and once explained, the two decide that the next stop must be Whisperwind Haven. Once they arrive, they come across some notes worn away by time, bonfire poems, and with their style, Chacona deduces that they must have been written by the members of the Golden Anthem, who had once wandered the area searching for inspiration. They must find the final melody, and they can do so with the wind. The melodies left by the Golden Anthem were once witnessed by the wind, and with the playing of Chacona's instrument, they are able to discover the final piece to their puzzle. An echo of Farrell can be seen searching for the lithograph of the Sentinel's true form. Now, this part is something that I find pretty interesting, because Farrell mentions a mysterious gentleman may have intentionally guided them to search for the lithograph, which is very suspicious. And what makes this even more suspicious is that the man had a backpack stuffed with papers and claimed to be a common artist traveling in search of inspiration. But he spoke like that of a nobleman, not a commoner. Farrell urges for the truth to come to light. The Knights of the Order are there to defend the Order, and not the common folk. So the time for the Golden Anthem to become the Knights for the people of Ragunna had finally arrived. The same mysterious gentleman had revealed the truth of the Sentinel, and convinced the Golden Anthem to stop singing for the divinity, and begin singing for the people of Ragunna as well. Once Rova and Chacona find the lithograph, what they assumed was actually true. The Golden Anthem were in fact banished for uncovering the truth about the Sentinel. But that doesn't explain who exactly is behind the Daemon incidents. That is something that they must continue on for. Would this be the right time to reveal the truth to the people of Ragunna? Would this be the right moment to plant the seeds of doubt in the people's hearts? Would this be the right time to finally expose the lies of the Order? Chacona, with a heavy heart, decided that this is that moment. Chacona and Rova decide to return to the city and gather a crowd. Margarita gathers a crowd for them and the people begin to listen. Chacona tells them of the Golden Anthem and their legacy. They were never cold-hearted criminals filled with hatred. They never placed a curse on Ragunna. The Cathedral of Mercury still sings hymns written by the Golden Anthem, and yet demons do not appear when they're sung. Even as the poets face their end, they didn't surrender to hatred. They faced their deaths knowing the truth in their hearts, hoping that one day the people of Ragunna will feel the same truth within themselves. Their final moments and their last work was not what it has been twisted to be, but a hastily written beacon of truth that they left behind. Chacona tells the crowd that the next day at the Odyssey Opera House, the truth will be revealed. Cristoforo then approaches Chacona, intrigued by the situation. He asks her if she was suggesting that the entire situation was the Order's doing, and that such a thing would be a grave crime punishable by banishment. Chacona instantly becomes cautious of Cristoforo, and asks him if he is from a noble family, since the city's elites tend to have a habit of defending the Order. Cristoforo denies that claim and explains that he is but a humble playwright. But in this moment, Cristoforo is planting many seeds of doubt within Chacona. Was this truly the right decision to make? Or would the truth do more harm than good? The situation seems to spook Chacona, and she eventually runs off from the crowd and towards the harbor. And in a very creepy fashion, as Chacona is tormented by a wound Cristoforo had opened of her past, he begins taunting her further, and she starts seeing him in every person she passes. There are many things we don't know about Cristoforo. Well, other than the fact that he's immensely shady and part of the Factitus. But at least to me, it seems like he's able to potentially manipulate people based on their fears. Whether this is part of his forte or something else, that is just something we don't know right now. Chacona is forced to face her past. The day of the Pilgrim Sale. The one that Chacona was placed on for blasphemy against the Sentinel. Just like the Golden Anthem. Because Chacona and the Tocatta family had committed the same crime as the Golden Anthem, in his last attempt to scare Chacona and potentially deter her from telling the truth, Cristoforo tells her that if she goes through with it, Rova will be the next person she dooms to their death. Was she willing to follow through with such a big sacrifice? Chacona has faith that this time things will work out. Cristoforo's illusion ends and Tocatta leaves behind her manuscript of music, which Rover later finds. Rover is transported back to the realm of melodies, where they meet the young girl once more. She explains that she is yesterday's child of ignorance, the actor now on stage, and the banished sinner of tomorrow, Tocatta. It is also at this moment she tells us that the story of the Golden Anthem doesn't just belong to the Poet Society, but also belongs to her. We are finally able to hear the full story. The story begins with a mysterious person showing the poets the truth about the Sentinel. They then decided from that day to become the true Knights of Ragunna. But they didn't do it alone. The Tocatta family became part of aiding the true Knights of Ragunna, the Golden Anthem, and it didn't take long for the Order to take notice of them. And so, in order to keep everyone safe, the poets gave Tocatta's father a key to a special study. A study that housed many papers that could take down the Order. And although it was blasphemy, Tocatta's father without hesitation agreed to take the key. But what about the fire in the pilgrim sail the Golden Anthem was on? Was that fire truly an accident? The Order made sure that the ship had nothing on it. No food, no water, just a weathered ship with 3 fools aboard. It turns out that the fire was started by the poets themselves. It was freezing, traversing across the unforgiving waters, and so they had set the cabin on fire and hastily wrote their final piece to be left behind. With our bodies to fuel the fire, the ensuing inferno shall forge Ragunna's true gold. The Order, being one step ahead, fueled with paranoia, salvaged the ship's wreckage to tie up any loose ends, and had hidden the Golden Anthem's last work. But the Order didn't know about the study that had been left behind to the Tocatta family, and they tried to keep the Golden Anthem's legacy alive. Because of this, they all met their gruesome deaths on the pilgrim sail, just like the Golden Anthem. The day that Tocatta's father was sent on the pilgrim sail, he handed young Tocatta the Golden Anthem study key. In his last words to her, he says, "Don't see it as a burden, my child. Remember, true courage isn't hiding it away in your heart. Raise it like a torch, just like the sun, so it can light the way for others. Only this kind of courage can rid your father of the cowardice he showed toward you and your mother. Never forget, you are a Tocatta." Tocatta's father, like the Golden Anthem, wanted to share the truth with the people of Ragunna, so the Order sent him on the pilgrim sail with the same charges. This inspired Tocatta to become a wandering bard and poet. She wrote songs weaving the stories of her father and the Poet Society into music, thus bringing forth her own banishment. The Golden Anthem were unable to prove what they believed in was true. They couldn't prove what the true form of the Sentinel was, so they all held on to their hope, waiting for the day that someone finally has the proof of their suspicions. The day had finally come. The rover could be that beacon of truth and break the shackles of the people of Ragunna. Once the seeds of doubt are planted, the kindling in Ragunna will eventually ignite to forge its true gold. The moment has come. It is time to ignite that flame of truth. Through the poem Tocatta recites, the people gathered to listen. Why would Imperator allow people to suffer on the pilgrim sail? How could poets who once sang the praises for the Sentinel curse rinascita? Why does the Order forbid the people of Ragunna from reading their earlier scriptures? All the lies the Order had told, the lies of the Sentinel and the pilgrim sail, are finally exposed, and may the people of Ragunna at last be free. Rover and Tocatta, however, are technically wanted criminals now, so GG go next, I guess. After the main quest of the event is over, we do get a scene surprisingly between Cristoforo and Fenrico, and it turns out that the two were in cahoots. The original goal was to revive the blasphemous Poet Society and spread their legacy to stoke fires of prejudice. With the help of Cristoforo and his ever so mysterious abilities, he was able to summon demons to sow fear across the city. This moment to me at least seems like Cristoforo is taunting Fenrico with not only his failure, but also with his morality or lack thereof. To which Fenrico responds that he does not care for labels of good or evil, but only for Ragunna's order and chaos. He ultimately will do anything to maintain the stability of Ragunna, and it doesn't matter what has to be done in order to achieve it. Cristoforo comments on Fenrico's growing anxiety, but can't exactly place its source, and Fenrico gets a little touchy about the topic, suggesting that to maintain their partnership, some things are better left unsaid. Before Cristoforo is about to leave, Fenrico stops him, because Cristoforo was the one who led the Golden Anthem to the lithograph, and he had apparently been seen lurking there around the same time. But why would he do such a thing? To To which he replies, "Some things are better left unsaid." I will say I genuinely enjoyed this conversation strictly because it was the best aura farming battle in wuwa, but also just how ominous the whole thing was. And with the exchange of some very cryptic words and glances, your summer will never wither comes to its end. First, I want to discuss the Tocatta family, what we know of them, their connection with the Golden Anthem, and a little bit about Chacona, but not too much since I will be making a separate video for Chacona's lore very soon. As we know, the Golden Anthem entrusted Chacona's father with a key to their private study. Within this study, there were many articles, poems, and songs that could bring forth the end of the Order. At first, you may wonder why the Tocatta family didn't just, expose the Order for their misdeeds as soon as they discovered the truth. But that's the thing. The Order is the highest authoritative power in Ragunna, and with that comes a lengthy history of them always being number one. To take down such an establishment overnight would practically be impossible, because 1, the Tocatta family have no proof of what they believe in is even true, and 2, with no proof, how can they expect the people of Ragunna to even believe them? Ultimately, what this would lead to would be a revolution, and revolutions don't happen overnight. They are more of a gradual process rather than a flick of a switch. And so, the Tocattas, after the Golden Anthem were exiled, decided to spread their legacy in a more subtle manner, through their music. However, the Order caught on to what their plans were, and one by one, they were exiled like the Golden Anthem. This is where Chacona comes in. After watching her family destroyed before her very eyes, the legacy of the Golden Anthem was placed upon her shoulders. Chacona possesses a natural ability to find and spread the truth. We see this with her younger self in the realm of melodies, being able to tell Rover the truth. Although the quest places Rover onto a pedestal, making them the beacon of truth, the real beacon is Chacona, because without her being able to let go of her fear and taking that very needed leap of faith, none of this would have even happened in the first place. Our memories are not as linear as we want them to be. We often get things mixed up or misremember certain things. And a similar thing can happen with melodies. Hence Rover finding themselves getting intertwined with Chacona's own melodies. But each memory that Rover seemed to have found themselves in were exactly where the Rover was supposed to be. Those memories were meant to be intertwined. And because of it, the right things were brought to light at the perfect moment. To be honest, Chacona has been carrying a large burden and she has been doing so for a very long time. To know the truth while watching everyone around you live their lives in complete ignorance would be such a weight to bear. And I don't blame her for being hesitant and fearful. I think a lot, if not all of us, can relate to the fear of the unknown, especially when it comes to the future. Because at the end of the day, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is promised, and fear can be a mighty shackle deterring us from taking that step forward. Words and music are weapons without form. This is something that Chacona tells us, and she is right. Now, of course, words and music cannot physically harm a person. Well, I guess music could if it's played badly, but they can possess more power than what you may think. Remember that time where a loved one praised you for something? Or when someone insulted you? How did those moments make you feel? The reason why there is so much power behind words and music is because they often invoke certain emotions within us. Whether good or bad, they are able to make us feel something. And that is why in the wrong hands and with the wrong intentions, they can be forged into weapons. In fact, the idea of words having power is a recurrent topic throughout history, especially in literature. In Proverbs chapter 8 verse 21, it mentions how death and life are in the power of the tongue. It emphasizes the importance of choosing your words carefully, because our words can have both negative and positive consequences. Words can be used to build others up and take others down. Words can be used to change your reality. Words can be used to change the world completely. Music can be used to affect our emotions as well as our views on the world around us. It can influence our political opinions and our morals. With Ragunna, although the demons were but the work of Cristoforo's shady activities, those demons could not have been created from nothing. What made the demons so effective and why they were able to cause so much chaos in Ragunna was because of fear. And the people of Ragunna's fear was fueled by the many stories they created themselves, and the Order and Cristoforo simply guiding them in the right, well, I guess wrong direction. The arrival of the demons only fueled the fears in people's hearts that already existed. You know when you're a kid and you're worried that a monster is under your bed? So you talk to your friends about it and they say they too feel like there's a monster under their beds. Well, imagine being comfy in your bed and then an actual freaking monster crawls out from under it. You would be terrified. And that's how the people of Ragunna must have felt. To finally see something you have feared for so long be manifested in front of your eyes, it wouldn't be the greatest of situations. But at the end of the quest, Chacona uses her own words to fill the people with hope, whilst planting the seeds of doubt within their hearts, making them question the Order and everything they have ever been made to believe in. Now, let's talk about the hat-wearing elephant in the room, Cristoforo. In the event, in a very heated discussion between Cristoforo and Fenrico, it is revealed that Cristoforo was the one who had provided the Golden Anthem with the lithograph, the very lithograph that portrayed the Sentinel in its true form, a majestic steed of the wind, and not a twisted creature of the sea. By showing the lithograph to the poets of the Golden Anthem, yes, he was technically showing them the truth, but also condemning them to their deaths. During the interrogation melody, Farrell even says, "From the moment we uncovered the lithograph, I knew it would come to this." He knew that he would eventually end up on the Pilgrim Sale, and yet he never turned his back on his members, nor the truth. He stayed on that path to its very brutal end. But that raises the question, why did Cristoforo show them the lithograph? We know that Cristoforo is part of the Factus, and the Factus have a goal. By resurrecting the Thenodians, they will be able to accelerate the next lament they refer to as the True Lament, thus bringing about the end of Solaris 3. The Thenodians embody the collective fears and turmoil of humanity, with the power to destroy the human spirit and ability to feed off of their collapsed will and fears. By doing this, they are able to bring forth catastrophic disasters that devastate Solaris 3. Through a conversation between Rover and Imperator, Imperator explains that they had chosen to merge with the Leviathan in order to discover its true nature. We find out that as long as civilization exists, so do the Thenodians, which means they can't be killed, which suggests that maybe in order to kill the Thenodians, civilization may have to die. And this could potentially be the reason why the Factus aims to trigger the True Lament, to basically achieve a clean slate of sort, where Thenodians no longer exist. Since the Thenodians feed from the fears and collapsed will of humanity, Cristoforo's intentions may not have been as simple as telling the truth to the Golden Anthem, but may have been a way to cause chaos and instability among the people of Ragunna. To be honest, Cristoforo genuinely makes my brain hurt because, seriously, what is up with this guy? But what is clear to us right now is that he seems to be the only person who knows more than most, and he certainly seems to take pride in it. Cristoforo sucks, but he is a good villain. I'll give him that at least. It is evident that Fenrico and the Order will do anything to maintain stability and power in Ragunna, something that Fenrico himself admits to Cristoforo in their conversation. The Pilgrim Sales, the imprisonments, the concealment of the truth, the eradication of the earlier scriptures, all of it was done to ensure the Order survives. Because without the Order, Ragunna would probably be in a bad spot. But don't get me wrong, I'm not defending the actions, but societies and civilizations work best with a leader. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a Genevan philosopher who published a book named The Social Contract. The premise of the social contract focuses on humanity's natural search for authority, not necessarily to obtain it, but to follow someone with authority. They consent to surrender some of their rights and freedoms and submit to the authority in exchange for protection and security. By doing so, they can live in somewhat peace knowing that they don't have to take on the burden of managing the society that they're part of. Of course, with that situation, as well as what we see in real life, this concept is far from simple and is very difficult to maintain. And honestly, it boils down to free will. People have the free will to think for themselves and form their own views and opinions, which often leads to conflict. And so, in order to maintain as much authority as possible, the Order pushed the idea of a theocracy, a divinity to believe in, and got rid of anything that could potentially inspire the people of Ragunna to question their authority. But because of figures like Cristoforo and the Phasalia family, there were cracks in their system, and the truth behind their lies began to seep out. I will say, yes, the Order as well as Ragunna was under the direct corruption and influence of the Leviathan. I believe that if you were to take the Leviathan out of the picture, I still think Ragunna would be in a similar situation. Without the Leviathan, the Order, in my opinion, would still be the bad guys, because Ragunna and the Order is very much rotten to its core, and like a weed in a garden, the Order should be eradicated. Chacona and Rover revealing the truth to the people of Ragunna was such a mind-blowing moment for me. However, my biggest question is, will the seeds of doubt bloom? Will what they did be enough to dismantle the Order and turn the people of Ragunna against them? Or was it all just for nothing? I can only hope that this is not the case. Since Chacona and Rover are now considered wanted criminals and our next stop is Septimon, I wonder if and how the Order will retaliate, as well as what Fenrico's next plan of action is. Either way, I hope that one day we will get to return to Ragunna, or at least get a glimpse into how impactful what Chacona and Rover did was. And with that being said, we have reached the end of our time together today. Please feel free to let me know in the comments your personal thoughts and theories on what we discussed. And as always, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.